The year 2624 promised new beginnings in Lijiang City, where the Second Academy was preparing for its awakening ceremony. Luo Heng, the director of the academy, solemnly announced that the awakening would not only determine the future, but also reveal the unknown sides of the individual. Students waited their turn with hope, dreaming of the power of berserkers or the secrets of pharmacy, while some simply feared the encounter with the unknown. The world of eternity broke free many years ago, offering an escape into the limitlessness of virtual reality. Euphoria from virtual victories and battles made humanity forget about the limits of reality, plunging deeper and deeper into eternity. And then the world changed when virtual quests and monsters became part of real life, expanding the boundaries of ordinary existence. Thus, eternity became an integral part of the real world, opening up new opportunities and challenges. Li, a new inhabitant of this world, stood out among the others with his appearance and the cross around his neck, symbolizing hope. After losing his mother, he faced a new challenge when his sister fell ill with an incurable disease. Li fights for his sister's life by turning to low-level priests as medical supplies quickly run out. He was forced to sell his house and ask relatives for help to raise funds for his sister's treatment, which was becoming more and more expensive. Faced with a choice, Li realizes that his path is to awaken the battle class, which will allow him to make money from cards and find a cure for his sister. The class awakening ceremony is just around the corner, and all the students are excitedly waiting for their turn to step into the magic circle led by the majestic 24th level mage. The magic circle, illuminated by purple light and ancient hieroglyphs, promises each student a unique path and destiny. Li Xiangyang, a 5th grade teacher with a list in hand, is ready to name the first student to step into the circle. All eyes are on the youngster who emerges from the crowd at number 1, ready to be a part of the magic and history that is about to unfold. Li intently watched the ceremony that had already begun, feeling the weight of the moment. In a world infested with monsters, martial classes were of the highest value, but only 3 out of thousands could appear during the awakening ceremony. Unfortunately, the youngster who first stepped into the arena didn't get the fighting class he wanted, suffering his first defeat of the evening. The call to number 31 was answered by Li himself, who was surrounded by the support and faith of his classmates, although the unpredictability of the awakening process is known. Li, an A-class elder, was facing a crucial moment, his academic achievements and statistics promising him a great chance of success. His 6th form teacher, Tang Tianzhong, watched the ceremony, discussing his students' chances with a colleague. They compared their class's successes in awakening the martial classes, with a slight rivalry in votes. But suddenly the teacher's attention is fixed on Li, who looks unusually motionless in the middle of the arena. Li felt his pendant suddenly come to life and rise into the air, illuminated by a mysterious light. The system determined his potential by activating the starting gift VDJ, the S+ talent of the Protection of the Holy Angel class. He stared in disbelief at the window of choice that appeared in front of him, almost not believing in his unexpected chance. This pendant, found in a street market in his past life, now opened up incredible possibilities for him. Activating the system and getting the S+ talent came as a gift from fate that would change his future. In this world where talent is graded from F to S, Li received the highest possible grade, which promises him immense potential. This awakening ceremony not only revealed the martial classes, but also showed an incredible connection between the talents of the students and the classes they were assigned. The teachers focused on Li did not understand his actions and watched in surprise as he looked up, wondering at the students' inexplicable behavior. Suddenly, as if waking up from an eternal sleep, a red jet shot out of the sky, heading straight for the arena, causing astonishment among those present. Everyone present in the arena, including the crowd, looked up in unison, watching the incredible phenomenon. The magician and the director, faced with this phenomenon, immediately realized that they had witnessed a unique awakening of talent. From the depths of this mystical jet, a magical woman with 6 wings descends to the ground, like an angel, capturing the gaze of all those present. She was approaching Li, who seemed entranced by her beauty. The pendant around his neck vibrated with powerful energy. "The glow is your faith and the source of your strength," the woman said, emphasizing the importance of faith to Li. She assured that his faith would protect him with holy light capable of dispelling darkness and protecting him from evil. The promise to be by his side materialized into a visible mark on his skin that would be an eternal reminder of her protection. The energy surging through his body transformed his experience into something otherworldly, filling his existence with light and new sensations. 3 figures appeared in front of Li, a Saint Paladin, a priest, and a mage, each representing a unique path and opportunity. The teachers watched in amazement as Li was given the chance to choose between rare talents, which is a huge stroke of luck in the awakening ceremony. The discovery of secret classrooms caused real surprise among teachers because this happens extremely rarely. The secret classes that appeared in front of Li amazed the imagination with their brilliance and beauty, each of them equipped with unique weapons. Fascinated by the sight before him, Li knew he had to make a choice that would determine his fate and place in this new world. Li viewed the Light Mage as a pure DPS class, acknowledging their high damage output, but their vulnerability and self-defense made him question it. The Priest, a master of salvation and resurrection, was attractive with his skills, but his dependence on others in combat made Li reject this choice. The Saint Paladin, a perfectly balanced class with defense, attack, and buff skills, seemed to be the best choice for Li. Selecting Paladin through the system prompt, Li felt it was just what he needed. The Paladin's outfit, much larger than Li's, shone with unparalleled beauty. Humility, bravery, empathy, and responsibility are the Paladin's key qualities that define its actions and purpose. Following these principles, Li, already as a Paladin, promised to fight for justice at all stages of his life. The moment after his choice, 6 wings lit up on Li's back, symbolizing his new power. The transformation into the 6-winged Paladin was a visual confirmation of his new identity. The system greeted Li upon awakening to the 10th level Saint Paladin class, granting him new skills and additional progression points. Students at the academy, amazed by his transformation, immediately began asking Li to take them with him to the final exam. His teacher, making his way through the crowd, told everyone not to surround Li and advised him to rest until his meeting with the principal tomorrow. Upon returning home, Li found that his stats had greatly improved, as well as additional stat points. With power as his top priority, Li used his points, feeling the energy fill his body, enhancing his fighting abilities. Soon there was a notification about a new Saint Paladin mission, which Li could not ignore, considering the promised reward for it. The task that fell to Li turned out to be a test at a location specially selected for his level. Moving to the task immediately plunged Li into a serious test, where every mistake could cost him his life, because death in the task meant death in reality. He found himself in a mine surrounded by darkness and the unknown. Surveying the environment, Li remembered the lessons about the ancient rugby monsters that lived in the mines, becoming dangerous when meeting people. While Li was recovering his knowledge of monsters in his memory, his first encounter with a real monster appeared before him. Due to the improvement of his stats, Li felt much more agile and stronger, deciding to defeat the monster without using special skills. The monster's claws swept past his neck, but Li, thanks to his speed, saw all of the monster's attacks as slow and predictable. However, one of the monster's attacks unexpectedly hit its target, inflicting a severe wound on Li's stomach and causing him to bleed. A defensive error cost Li a wound, but he quickly decided to use a slow regeneration to restore his health. Due to the recovery, Li was able to counterattack using his blade of pure white light. Using a level 4 tiger attack technique, Li lunged at the monster, inflicting numerous injuries on it. With the force of his attack, he not only defeated the monster, but also caused destruction to the environment, leaving behind only ruins. "That's it, baby," Li whispered, feeling the satisfaction of his victory. Legend has it that the monster still lies in that mine, a reminder of the Paladin's strength and courage. To train his fists, Li punched the monster in the chest a few more times, using the moment to improve his fighting skills. The victory over the ancient monster of rugby was considered the end of the test for Li, for which he received an A. A notification appeared on his device screen with a prize: 10 extra stat points and a basic one-handed sword as a reward for successfully completing it. Now Li could leave the testing ground and return to the real world. When he returned, he immediately grabbed the phone, seeing that it was already 5 p.m., and remembered the need to visit his sister in the hospital. At that time, his sister was watching the news, which was actively discussing the event with the appearance of a holy angel, which, as it turned out, was related to her brother. When a nurse came to her ward and demanded to pay 10,000 for the treatment, Sister Li was shocked, because before the fee was only 5,000. The amount in the new receipt seemed astronomical to her, especially considering the doubling of the cost. At that moment, a man entered the ward and tried to calm the situation by interfering in the conversation between the nurse and Sister Li. Having finished the conversation, the nurse reminded about the need to pay for medical services by the end of the day, after which she left the ward. The sister, impressed by such persistence, asked the stranger who he was. The man introduced himself as Secretary Zhao Wenbing, a friend of her older brother, showing his business card. Entering the ward, Li saw 2 men near his sister and was surprised, trying to find out who they were. One of the men introduced himself as the mayor's secretary, wanting to discuss some matters with Li. Given the mayor's high status in the city, a meeting with his secretary was considered a significant event, suggesting the importance of this meeting to Li and his sister. Li respectfully shook hands with the secretary, acknowledging the importance of the moment. They both realized that the hospital room was not the best place to discuss their plans. The secretary decided that one of his bodyguards would stay behind to watch over Miss Xiao while he went to discuss the details with Li. In the cafe, the mayor personally congratulated Li on receiving the S grade, emphasizing that such an achievement is impossible without talent and hard work. The secretary said the mayor has taken a special interest in Li, providing him with resources to prepare for upcoming challenges and exams. The key to the resources that awaited Li in the city bank was left in front of him by the mayor, who had high hopes for Li. Li accepted the offer with a smile, feeling grateful for the trust and support. Returning to his sister, Li shared with her the news that filled her with joy and pride for his brother. Feeling responsible for his sister's health, Li decided to use the Saint Paladin's slow regeneration skill. The attempt at treatment brought the sister a feeling of warmth and comfort, almost like a natural source of health. After completing the recovery process, Li noticed an improvement in his sister's health, which strengthened his choice to become a Saint Paladin. The next day, thanks to his new status, Li became the object of attention of many universities who wanted to recruit him. Together with the director, he met with representatives of these universities, ready to discuss the conditions of his future studies. Among the representatives were distinguished personalities from leading universities, each of whom had something special to offer Li. At an important moment in his life, Li stands on the threshold of an unusual future. He makes a low bow at the door, expressing deep respect and readiness for new challenges. Amid the bustle of anticipation, one of the teachers takes the floor. He reveals the essence of the offer from Rongyang University, getting straight to the point, as if anticipating Li's curiosity. The offer is impressive. 2 million yuan and 3 exclusive Saint Paladin class skill books, an amount that exceeds the monthly income of an ordinary family, which is about 6,000 yuan. Rongyang University sets the stakes high by offering a reward for just one gesture of joining. The exclusivity of books is also not ignored. These are books that ordinary people don't have access to, and even the mayor couldn't provide Li with that level of resources. The competition heats up when a representative from another university enters the game with an even bigger offer. 3 million yuan upon admission and 3 Saint Paladin books each year, with which the awakened Paladin will teach. This opens up a prospect for Li beyond his wildest expectations. The special representative of the university, having gathered the attention of all those present, said that the seriousness of current students is lacking to achieve true mastery. With unwavering confidence, she offers them a unique resource capable of taking their academic abilities to the next level. The school director, stunned by this news, can barely contain his emotions. A rare resource that transforms even the smallest creatures into legendary warriors. It is a priceless treasure that cannot be measured in gold or silver. The teacher, engrossed in this discussion, asks Li what choice he will make when faced with a difficult decision. Li, thinking about the offer, feels the burden of responsibility and, despite the temptation, decides to refuse. His refusal is evidence of deep self-knowledge and maturity. Despite the difficulties he faces, Li declares his desire to enter one of the 3 prestigious universities, demonstrating his ambition and commitment to the future. Known as the elite among educational institutions, these universities are a dream destination for thousands of students, including those of various races and cultures, making the competition extremely high. A representative of one of these universities, lit by a blue aura, accuses Li of insufficient training and missed opportunities, causing him to doubt his own abilities. Encountering this powerful aura forces Li to rethink his path, but the criticism only hardens his determination to prove his worth. Principal Li, using his own purple aura, stands up for his student, emphasizing the importance of believing in each student's potential. Not wanting to waste any more time arguing, Li chooses a course of action and leaves the meeting, ready for the next trials and challenges that lie ahead. With a month to go before the crucial exam, Li believes deeply in his powers, backed by an unusual system that promises to transform him into an unstoppable force. He firmly decided he will definitely become a student of one of the 3 prestigious universities. A month later, the entrance exam ceremony begins, the examiner of which is the Demon Yang himself. Students feel anxious when faced with such a powerful challenge. Among the crowd, curiosity about Li, already surrounded by a halo of legends, rages. 2 young men notice his presence, one nudges the other, telling him to look back at Li. Walking through the ordinary crowd, Li stands out with his paladin aura, a testament to his exceptional strength and dedication. His newfound power becomes the talk of the town, with Li now recognized as the ultimate warrior. The exam begins in a mysterious and eerie dark forest, where every second counts and students will have to fight for survival. The contestants realize that failure in this challenge will mean not only academic failure, but also actual death, which adds to their resolve. Students from various classes, including Sun Qiang and Motion, gathered at the starting line, ready to face the challenge. Li stands alone in the 5th grade, determined to face the nightmarish ordeal alone, demonstrating his unique bravery. The principals of the educational institutions are watching the developments, hoping that Li has a secret trick up his sleeve. Li's choice to choose a nightmarish difficulty level with a high risk of death surprised even the most seasoned observers. The dark forest turns out to be full of dangers. Monsters lie in wait for victims, hiding behind trees and leaves. Hearing a rustle behind him, Li instantly grabs his giant weapon, the blunt. A monster much larger than him attacks Li from under the leaves. Li swings his weapon with all his might to hit the enemy. His 1-star axe, wielded with great skill, easily defeats the monster, highlighting Li's immeasurable strength and bravery. After defeating the first enemy, Li is faced with a new challenge. Groups of cat-like monsters attack him from all sides, rushing 3 individuals at a time. However, this does not become a problem for Li. He skillfully dodges attacks and counterattacks, destroying each monster with impressive precision and skill. At the climax of the fight, Li rips off one of the monster's limbs with immense force and transforms it into a blade of pure white light, piercing another enemy through it. This maneuver, turning a part of the monster into a weapon against itself, became a true innovation on the battlefield, something no student had done before. The crowd of observers was shocked by what they saw. Anyone who managed to capture this scene on their phone felt really lucky. A discussion began among the audience about Li's extraordinary speed and magical power, which far exceeded the abilities of the cat-like monsters. A discussion ensues between the 2 teachers watching the fight about how a student with such potential ended up in the 5th grade. One of them believes that although Li has an impressive fighting mindset, his methods are excessively risky because he has spent much of his energy on the first wave of attacks without considering future challenges. The teachers doubt that Li will have the strength to continue the fight, predicting that the mindless use of energy will lead to his inevitable defeat. And so, before the conversations had died down, the next great wave of cat-like monsters approached Li. Will he have the strength and skills to cope with this new, even more massive challenge? Li displays extreme strength and skill, using his blunt force in such a way that each swing cuts through the air, releasing jets of yellow fire. Thanks to his unique skills, he disables entire groups of monsters with a single blow, demonstrating unparalleled combat effectiveness. Li uses a variety of combat techniques, each aimed at destroying monsters by using their weaknesses against themselves. The apogee of the battle becomes the moment when Li strikes the cat monster's head with incredible force, splitting its skull in 2. After defeating the last enemy in this wave, Li watches as the last monster falls lifeless, marking the end of the challenge. But instead of peace, a portal opens before Li, which is not the end, but only the transition to the next challenge. This new level unfolding before him does not promise to be an easy task. On the contrary, it hints at even greater trials and adventures that lie ahead for Li. The previous challenges he faced seemed too easy for Li, but at this new level, events await him that promise to be much more interesting and challenging, raising the stakes and testing his abilities like never before. On the bustling podium, a young streamer begins his stream by broadcasting the exam of Li, a famous student from the 2nd Academy known as Shining Paladin, who is gifted with an S-level talent. The streamer's screen lights up with scenes of Li's success as he completes a level on nightmarish difficulty in just 3 minutes and 17 seconds to the delight of the audience. Not losing any opportunity, the streamer approaches a professional operator with a huge video camera and begins to demonstrate his broadcast right in front of the lens, attracting the attention of everyone present. Meanwhile, Li is moving on to the next level, ready for new challenges. A loud crowd of monsters appears in front of him, and among them is the Minotaur from December 14th, who stands in front of 6 demonic cats, posing as the main threat. If in the previous level Li fought with simple idiots, now his risk of death increases dramatically due to real monsters. The monsters begin to act more actively, tearing the air with their loud growls which echoed through the arena. The Minotaur, faster and more aggressive than the others, charged at Li, who stood ready. Demonic cats, expertly managing their aura, prepare a powerful attack, concentrating energy for the upcoming strike. Li realizes that one of the earth cats has placed a curse on him. Small black paws begin to wrap around his legs, limiting his mobility and threatening his position in battle. Spectators watching as a crowd of monsters approached Li were sure that he was in mortal danger. However, Li quickly assessed the situation and came to a decision on how to get out of it with minimal losses. He saw the nearest threat, a demonic cat with fiery paws charging straight at him. Li, fingers crossed, whispers the words of an ancient incantation as he prepares to perform the cross of divine light. A giant cross of fire falls from the heavens to the ground, instantly incinerating the demonic cats, leaving only ashes in their place. Cross of Divine Light, a level 4 spell, causes a continuous stream of light energy, dealing damage to all enemies in a certain area, resulting in the instant death of all demon cats. A teacher watching the battle from the stands acknowledges the mastery of this spell, classifying it as one of the highest skill levels. With all the demonic cats put down, Lee is left with only the Minotaur, face to face. Lee confidently declares to the Minotaur, "Now you're alone, it's your turn," emphasizing his readiness for the final showdown. The Minotaur, as it turns out, has berserker skills and invulnerability, making him a formidable opponent even for Lee. But one of the Minotaur's most powerful skills, the Battle Stomp, was immediately activated, and the ground began to crack under its massive hooves. Under the effect of invulnerability, the Minotaur activates its Fury to Attack skill, making its attacks unstoppable and instilling fear in the audience. However, Lee is not outdone, using his airstrike skill, which creates a powerful wave that knocks the Minotaur back and allows for a counterattack. Taking advantage of the moment when the Minotaur was still recovering from the blow, Lee charged in, performing the Blade of Pure Radiance technique in the air, hitting the monster with great precision. All that remains is to deliver the last decisive blow to the Minotaur lying powerless on the ground. It was the final blow. No one could have predicted that Lee would take down such a powerful opponent with such ease. Dark blood oozes from the Minotaur's wound, staining the ground in a thick hue. Coming closer, Lee feels the monster's faint breathing. Instead of using the weapon to finish him off, Lee chooses to finish off the Minotaur by stepping on its face in the final act of victory. It's time to move on to the next level, where Lee awaits a meeting with a team of bosses, a new challenge on his way. The stands erupt with screams and shouts of delight as everyone witnessing this battle is enthralled by Lee's prowess, especially his ability to take down the monster in berserker mode. The mayor's assistant, mesmerized by Lee's feats, watched with burning eyes, unable to believe that only a month ago Lee had mastered his class and now was using it with such skill. Sitting next to the director of the academy, he greets him, admitting that Lee is a true genius who has appeared within the walls of his educational institution. One of the spectators, observing the tension of the battle, asks aloud why Lee does not rest before the decisive meeting with the boss, emphasizing his unusual endurance. In Suhan State County, home to many talented individuals, many are trying to play through the nightmarish level of soloing to earn a place in the top 100. On his way to the boss throne, Lee encounters the Minotaur King, whose power and skills remain a mystery due to his high rank of 16th evil. Lee's invasion of his domain enrages the Minotaur King, who rises from his throne and swings his giant hammer at Lee. At this critical moment, the primal form of the Paladin is activated. Kaka appears before Lee, reminding him that he is not alone and ready to help in the battle. Lee soon transforms into a full-fledged Paladin, dressed in festive weapons and ready for battle. Weapon in hand, Lee charges at the Minotaur King, swinging his axe the size of the Minotaur itself. Even Lee's powerful punch, boosted by 4 buffs, seemed unable to penetrate the Minotaur's massive body, highlighting its impressive strength and resilience in the face of threat. The Paladin uses the moment to precisely strike the Minotaur King's chest, targeting the weak spot to slice through his flesh. The King's response is quick. A mighty roar comes from his mouth, and although the Paladin manages to hit him, the boss raises his giant axe in preparation for a counterattack. The Minotaur hits the Paladin's shoulder with his hammer, which causes the 5 concrete columns in the hall to break from the penetrating force. Fortunately, Lee is protected by the Saint Paladin's armor, which prevents serious injury, although the impact was so strong that it could have broken his bones. Paladin Lee decides to use the method Spear of Victory, which is created from the existing divine light and causes significant damage to the enemy. A spear fired at the Minotaur King does a lot of damage to him as he does not have time to react adequately due to his lower dexterity. Despite the great power of the Minotaur King, who is far superior to Lee, the only way to win is through the use of strategy and cleverness. Lee notices that the King's agility is lower than his own and begins to attack from different directions, creating an advantage. In addition to low agility, the Minotaur King has another weakness: durability, which opens up additional opportunities for attack. Although the King has more stamina and health, his recovery ability decreases when attacking, causing him to take more damage and knockback, allowing Lee to land multiple powerful hits in a short amount of time. It became clear that this moment was crucial for Lee, especially when the Minotaur was in a state of intense rage, making him more vulnerable to subsequent attacks. At the critical moment of the attack on Lee, a pop-up appears warning him that he is low on mana, which adds tension to the situation. This forces Lee to be extra careful in managing his resources. as any mistake can result in him failing the exam due to mana depletion. Despite the risk, Li lunges at the monster with all his courage, delivering a powerful axe strike right through the center of the Minotaur's head. After this final blow, the Paladin's suit begins to come off Li, and a voice from the walls declares him the winner of the Nightmare Difficulty Deep Dark Forest Dungeon, with a completion time of 9 minutes and 24 seconds, placing him first among the contestants. The period of his resettlement was marked by family tragedies, the death of his mother, the illness of his sister, and the accumulation of large debts for treatment, which created considerable pressure on Li. But even in such difficult conditions, Li did not give up, believing that the ability to improve his skills and train his fighting spirit would help him cope with the challenges. The system gave him a second chance in life, but he continued to decide his fate himself, deciding to take advantage of this chance, maintaining an unwavering fighting spirit. After defeating the boss, a portal opens in front of Li. It's time to go home. Leaving the portal, numerous reward windows appear in front of him, offering various items, and his level increases to 13. Li appears before the fans as a god from heaven, becoming a favorite of the public, who loyally supported him throughout the fight, feeling proud and excited by his successes. The atmosphere in the arena was electrifying as everyone in the audience shouted words of adoration at Li, shouting, "I love you! You are my god!" Turning his head to the left, Li saw the headmaster of the school, who proudly stated that based on his years of experience in conducting examinations, he believed that Li deserved to take the top spot in Sukang district. Suddenly, a luxurious car, worth as much as a house in the capital, stopped in front of the audience, attracting everyone's attention. The mayor's assistant approached the car and announced that the results of the competition would be available in at least 3 days, promising to immediately inform the participants and the public about them. After the last conversation, Zhao Bing quickly fulfilled his promise. Sister Li was transferred to a luxury hospital, where her condition was monitored by a professional medical team around the clock. While visiting the hospital, Li came with good news for his sister, full of hope to share his success with her. Stepping to the door of her room, Li and the nurse felt a piercing cold coming from the room. When they opened the door, it turned out that in the corridor, all the doctors and visitors were mystically frozen, which gave the impression of a temporary stop. Li immediately started running down the hall to his sister's room as the nurse screamed after him, but soon she too was frozen. Li, regaining his strength, uses his hatchet to break down the door of the ward, which was covered in ice, showing his determination to get to his sister. He finds a mage girl in the ward casting spells at his sister's bedside, activating an ancient spell wheel that glows with a green glow in an attempt to heal her. Suddenly, an ice dragon starts circling the room, creating a cold atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Li instinctively prepares to use his energy to fight the dragon, seeing it as a challenge to himself. However, the girl yells at him to stop and not use the energy against the dragon, warning of the possible consequences. Li, surprised, pauses and approaches the girl to understand the situation better. The mage explains that his sister's heart is in danger of breaking into pieces from wrong actions, emphasizing the fragility of her condition. The sister's illness suddenly worsened, covering everything around with ice, which was caused by the presence of the ice dragon. The mage explains that the best she can do now is to prevent the cold from spreading beyond this floor, asking Li not to disturb her. Li, aware of the urgency of the moment, quickly turns to his system, which allows him to control his abilities. He orders the system to channel all of its available resources into improving its slow regeneration ability, hoping to strengthen his sister's condition and sustain her life force in this critical situation. By using all available resources, Li increases the level of his slow regeneration ability from 4th to 10th, activating an enhanced version of this ability. The mage girl who tried to heal his sister was amazed by the power of the paladin's healing magic, which surpassed even her own abilities as a 23rd level priest. Focusing her will and power, Li begins the ritual over her sister, going all out. During the ritual, he asks the girl to invite a high-ranking priest, although she initially notes that the priest's schedules are very busy. Li persists, promising to fulfill any of the priest's requests in the future in exchange for his immediate assistance. The magician immediately agrees and rushes to call the priest, realizing the seriousness of the situation, while Li continues to make efforts to help his sister. Xiao Yun, Li's sister, was suffering from an aggravating illness that had tormented her every night for the past year under the influence of a cold aura, causing excruciating pain throughout her body. Li can barely contain the ice energy emanating from his sister, showing the power of the disease. The situation escalates to such an extent that even outside the hospital one can see how the building is gradually covered with ice. With each passing minute, it becomes harder and harder for Li to hold back the cold energy from his sister, and he himself begins to become covered in ice, fighting for his sister's life and facing the unspeakable cold. The ice dragon rampaged uncontrollably throughout the room, leaving cold swirls in its wake. Suddenly, a green layer of energy appeared out of nowhere, hitting the dragon directly in the head, which surprised him. This layer of energy continued to attack, striking the dragon with powerful blows and dealing significant damage to it. Sister Li's condition began to deteriorate as the atmosphere of struggle and cold affected her. Li, feeling panicked and desperate, began to call loudly not to touch his sister, wanting to protect her from any threats. However, the next green layer of energy suddenly hit Li directly in the chest, knocking him back with great force. Surrounded by a green aura, the girl who had summoned this layer ordered the dragon to come closer, preparing for a direct confrontation. She decided to challenge the dragon, showing her determination and courage. On the end of her staff was a cross, with which she boldly struck the dragon squarely in the chin in a display of impressive skill. Not only was her physical strength embedded in each of her strikes, but also the power of her green aura, making her attacks far more powerful than normal strikes, giving her an edge in this unequal battle. The girl, steadfast and determined, had great inner strength, ready to face any challenges. Using her magic spells, she eventually managed to limit the ice dragon's movements by binding him with energy bonds. The decisive moment was her precise strike of the staff on the green mark of magic on the dragon, which allowed it to release its own essence. After that, the healing procedure began to take effect, and the pain began to leave Sister Li's body, bringing her relief. Li, coming out from under the rubble of ice, anxiously asked the girl if the danger was over. Making another decisive gesture with her staff across the floor, she began the process of retreating the ice that began to melt throughout the hospital, returning it to normal. Approaching her to introduce herself, the girl introduced herself as Kui Lei, a level 35 priest from Qingyun City. Principal Jia invited her to arrive early to take care of Sister Li. She noted that she would not have broken the rules if she had not known about Li's potential to take the top spot. It wasn't just Li's determination to hold back the cold that caught her attention, but also his potential that no ordinary boy could show. Li, impressed by her ability, asks about the possibility of healing his sister. Kui Lei explained that the coldness emanating from the body was evidence of blood awakening. She revealed that when the game world merged with reality, many players chose different races for their characters, and as a result, some people gained special traits, such as green eyes and long ears for those with elven blood, or the ability to grow into giants, the size of those who have the blood of giants. During the last 200 years, representatives of various races mixed their blood with humans, but after many generations, these characteristics and powers were lost, except in cases of special awakening of the blood. Kui Lei explained to Li that blood awakening can have both positive and negative consequences. A successful awakening increases power control and learning abilities, but failure can result in paralysis or even instant death. She also noted that Sister Li was suffering from the cold because her body was too weak to withstand the power of the blood. Li learned that only the rare ice lotus could alter a person's physiology enough to heal his sister. The last time this artifact appeared at auction was 30 years ago and was sold for 1.3 billion to an anonymous buyer. Kui Lei warned Li that in 3 months the cold would reach its full strength, and her sister would not be able to contain it. After that, she opened the portal and left the room, advising Li to contact her after making a decision. She suggested 2 ways: find the ice lotus or use the sealing technique to seal the blood's power, although this would limit the sister's future development. 5 days later, Li trained intensively, completing his daily fitness plan that included 200 squats, push-ups, deadlifts, and weapon thrusts. He also paid attention to the balanced consumption of water and distribution of characteristic points. Under the 2332 system, understanding the importance of balanced development for Paladin. Shortly after, the news announced the results of the exam, where Li from Lijiang City took first place, which was reported in the report. The mayor's assistant expressed his admiration for Li, noting his success in the Paladin class, and offered the city a. In every cafe of the city, people enthusiastically discussed Li and his outstanding victory over the boss, which became a real sensation. A young man was sitting on the couch at home, intently watching a replay of Li's battle with the boss on TV. He watched this fight many times, impressed by his skill. The boy had beautiful red hair and was dressed in red, considering this color to be his favorite. He couldn't accept that Li had broken his record, clearing the level in 9 minutes and 24 seconds. This caused a flurry of emotions in the red-haired young man, because earlier he was considered the record holder and the star of the arena. While walking down the street, Li received a call from Qizhao's secretary, who informed him of a reward from the administration of 5 million in cash and a luxurious mansion. The secretary also mentioned that representatives from the top 3 universities were already on their way to him, interested in his admission. During the walk, Li was approached by a university recruiter, Rong Yang, who offered 4 million for admission. In the midst of their conversation, a helicopter appeared, from which a man descended, introducing himself as a recruiter from Modu University, ready to offer twice as much for Li's admission. A girl appeared next to Li who offered an even larger amount and promised to provide him with the best conditions if he chose their university. The day was a real test for Li, because his unexpected success in the arena attracted the attention of not only fans and envious people, but also representatives of elite educational institutions, each of which was ready to do anything to recruit the budding star. The girl with the wings suddenly grabbed Li, trying to steal him without permission, which added to the tension of the situation. During their flight over the city, a magical spell suddenly descended on the girl's head, which appeared right in the air, applied by an unknown sorcerer. The woman who intervened stopped the winged girl, claiming that Li's abduction made no sense, and introduced herself as a representative of Suhan University, issuing a warning. The representative of Modu University expressed his conditions, promising to provide Li with A-rank cultivation resources and a full set of gold-rank equipment annually. The girl who tried to kidnap Li assured him that her goal was only to talk to him alone, and urged him to choose one of the universities, trying to win his sympathy. The university recruiter Su Mei Er made her own offer, stressing that strength trumps everything, and if Li can make it to the top students, he will gain access to C-rank resources. She also noted that Suhan University has repeatedly won the freshman competition for the past 4 years. The rivalry between representatives of the universities only intensified. Li seriously considered offers from each university, realizing that any one of them could provide him with a bright future. In the end, he caught the attention of everyone present and announced his choice. Li chose Suhan University, after which a representative of the university immediately issued a special enrollment contract, confirming his decision to become part of their academic community. Signing the contract with university representative Suhan, a level 42 magical girl, Li could feel her strength and desire to compete resonate with his own aspirations. At the moment of signing the contract, Li's cross, which he wore on his chest, began to glow with the document, symbolizing the agreement and activation of the agreement. The girl gave Li a week to collect things, after which she promised to take him to the university, emphasizing the beginning of a new stage in his life. She explained that the academic year at Suhan University starts earlier than usual so that students can receive high-quality training as soon as possible. This was necessary so that students could build up their strength faster and achieve better results in competitions among freshmen. Meanwhile, Sister Li was transferred to a much larger room in the mansion provided by the mayor's assistant, where she entertained herself with a state-of-the-art robot. Before leaving, Li asked the secretary to look after his sister for a while, taking care of her well-being. His concern for his sister was so touching that it could not leave anyone who witnessed this scene indifferent. As he got into the car, it was the first time Li had left his sister and gone so far. Feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety for the future, ahead of him was serious preparation, because entering Suhan University opened up new opportunities and challenges for which he had to be ready. The car with Li inside was instantly transported through a portal that opened a new world before them. They ended up in the city of Aninin, a student campus of Suhan University, which cooperates with the military. Proximity to the massive teleportation system built next to the university made travel safe and convenient. A huge wooden gate greeted Li at the entrance to the university, where representatives of various races met, from gigantic giants to small goblins and ordinary people. A university representative led Li through the corridors to officially register him as a student. Suddenly, right next to them, a boy flew past in the air, creating an unforgettable impression. He was sent flying by a girl with a sword behind his back, and judging by the way he flew, the blow was extremely strong. Angrily, the girl warned the boy she hit that he shouldn't bother her anymore, pointing out that it was just a warning. Eyewitnesses discussed the incident, commenting that the boy decided to attack the wrong person, trying to make acquaintances with freshmen, but finally received the well-deserved punishment. Li, who had just arrived here, was surprised by what he saw, but he quickly realized that this university had descendants of various races, so he should be prepared for such encounters in the future. The university representative used fire magic to create a student ID for Li, officially confirming him as a student at Suhan University. Li's student ID card showed his ranking and number of points, emphasizing his high standing among the students. Continuing down the corridor, a university representative explained to Li the rules of university life. Each course had its own rating, and the higher the student's level, the higher his place in this rating. Ranking of first-year students was based on their success in exams. She emphasized that the freshman competition will be held in a month, where Li will have a chance to solidify his position, but at the same time will be a target for others who will seek to take his place. The representative also mentioned the point rating system, which allowed students to use points to purchase necessary goods and services. Freshmen received points based on their ranking, which they could spend on food, gear, potions, books, and more. Points could be earned in two ways: by completing tasks with a student ID or through a place in the world ranking, where students received a certain number of points each month based on their position. The university had 3 main locations for training: the Goblin Dungeon, designed for levels 17 to 21, Warped Forest for levels 23 to 26, and Purgatory for levels 28 to 31. Li will need to spend a certain amount of points to access these locations, but he can also use the training hall to level up, where his opponents can be both robots and real people. In this system, the strongest student has absolute power and the most resources, emphasizing the brutality of the struggle for survival in the university world. The smile on Li's face clearly expressed his enthusiasm and positive attitude towards his new experience at Suwon University, which showed his confidence and willingness to take on new challenges. After a detailed explanation of the university's rules by a representative, she and Li found a large group of students congregating together. They passed by the crowd of students without stopping, going about their business. This caused lively discussion among the students, who wondered who Li was and why the teacher was personally accompanying him, since students were usually divided into groups and accompanied by senior students. One of the students explained that for newcomers from a special set, a teacher is appointed to facilitate their adaptation and to introduce them to the course of university affairs more quickly. After hearing that Li had won first place, one girl was interested and asked to tell more about this guy. He was introduced as Zhou Li, a level 30 Paladin, the top one in the Suhan district, much to everyone's surprise. Everyone was shocked to hear this and started actively discussing his achievements, the way he defeated the boss and the monsters, and pointed out that Li had enough charisma to become a celebrity. However, some students expressed doubts about the veracity of the information about his first place among freshmen, not believing the rumors. A youth from the skeptics group said he believed the story of Li's first place was nothing more than fiction, prompting further discussion among students. On his way through the corridor, Li was interrupted by a youth with fiery red hair who blocked his path. This young man introduced himself as Liu Jinn, a level 30 knight who was ranked 38th, and expressed doubts about Li's strength enough for the top spot, offering him a challenge. The senior student standing behind Liu Jinn tried to stop him, pointing out that the top 1 status was unanimously determined by the chancellor and the 5 teachers, and there was no chance of error. However, Liu Jinn ignored his words. The other students saw Liu Jinn's challenge as an attempt to use Li's reputation to boost his own ranking. Li, standing before Liu Jinn, asked why he should accept his challenge. In response, Liu Jinn offered 100 points if Li won, demanding nothing in return if he lost. Li knew he had to accept this challenge to protect his future university career, but he decided to raise the stakes so that the lesson would be remembered by all. He stated that he is ready to fight for 300 points, emphasizing his confidence. Liu Jinn's face paled as he risked losing almost all of his points with only 400 in his account. The opinion spread among observers that Liu Jinn was too confident at the beginning of the semester, risking everything unnecessarily. Li, wanting to push Liu Jinn to a decision, declared that he would leave if Liu Jinn did not have the courage to accept the challenge. Unable to give up such pressure, Liu Jinn agreed. Okay, 300 points, let's go to the ring. Li, radiating the Paladin's yellow aura, summoned strength and confidence as he faced his opponent. He offered a condition. If after 3 attacks Liu Jinn did not fall to his knees, then Li would be considered defeated. A woman in leather clothes announced the start of the fight, emphasizing the rule of avoiding lethal techniques and indicating that the fight would start on her countdown to 1. Liu Jinn instantly charged forward, eager to prove his striking superiority as a knight of vengeance. He performed a huge swing over Li's head, intending to deliver a blood strike. At the moment of the attack, Liu Jinn believed in his victory, convinced that his blow would be decisive. However, the sword flew past Li's face without touching him. Li's response was instantaneous as his knee met Liu Jinn's chest. The punch sent Liu Jinn far outside the ring, where he crashed into the wall in sharp pain. The force of the impact was so great that Liu Jinn was on his knees, unable to feel his body. For Li, this fight turned out to be too easy. He had hoped for a more serious challenge and was disappointed to learn that his opponent could not sustain even a single blow. The audience watching the duel held their breath waiting for the result. completely fascinated by what was happening. After the incident, the senior examined Liu Jinn and informed a university representative of the severity of his injuries, including 5 broken ribs and internal bleeding, after which he passed out. She immediately ordered the priest to heal the wounded man. For the win, Li received 300 points, which were immediately transferred to his student ID. The white-haired girl, who had previously impressed everyone with her strength, had been watching the fight closely, and recognizing Li's strength, approached him with the offer of a duel. She came out to Li, offering to test his strength in a duel, acknowledging his status as a top 1 student. Li, upon encountering her, felt that she was not only a descendant of demonic blood, but also the wielder of the Dark Moon Ancient Sword, an heirloom weapon of the highest rank. In his hands was the Mystic Light Warhammer, also of star rank, and he accepted her challenge. As the fight began, the girl tried to deliver a quick strike from the shadows, trying to hit Li with lightning speed. Li responded with a stormhammer that dealt massive damage and knocked the enemy back at full swing. Their weapons collided in the center of the arena with a loud explosion that excited everyone present and made this moment the climax of the competition. The powerful collision threw both back, creating a spectacular sight for onlookers. She acknowledged Li's extreme power, calling him a true monster in the arena, and decided to use a demonic strike that charged her sword with dark elemental energy, giving it impressive power. Li, with a smile on his face, rushed into the attack, glad to find a worthy opponent, which gave him the real excitement of the fight. They used a variety of strikes during the fight, including uppercuts, quick strikes, shockwaves, and devastating blows, showing a high level of skill. Their weapons collided with tremendous force, each trying to outmatch the opponent's blows. The sparks from their punches lit up everything around them, creating an exciting action with Li's golden energy and his opponent's purple energy. Observers were amazed. It is hard to believe that such spectacular fights take place between students. She applied an enhanced block that absorbed the damage, forcing her to parry every strike instead of 1 out of 3, requiring her to adapt to Li's aggressive style. Viewers wondered if Li was risking his powers too lightly, or if he was completely confident in his abilities, because he did not try to conserve energy. They noticed that from the start, Li was restricting his opponent's movements, forcing her to block his hammer, which showed his strategic approach to the fight. Observers wondered how warlike and yet courageous this paladin must be to engage such a charming opponent without hesitation. Li, feeling that the warm-up was over, prepared to show his true skill. He activated his unique abilities, including God's Gift, Courage, Weapon Blessing, and Dawn Blessing, greatly enhancing his attacks. His opponent felt incredible pressure from Li's growing strength, forcing her to struggle with every breath. Li decided to use the Spear of Victory, a weapon intended for a decisive blow. At the same time, she used Ghost Strike, quickly moving a certain distance away to counterattack. Their punches were so powerful that the floor beneath them shattered into pieces, highlighting the sheer force they put into each punch. Li, with his experience and intuition, predicted her next moves as he prepared for the decisive attack. The situation in which she found herself on her knees with Li's hammer pointed straight at her indicated her impending defeat in this fight. However, at the critical moment, when the hammer was almost at the girl's head, Li suddenly stopped, unable to strike such a charming opponent, showing not only his skill, but also his nobility. In her eyes, Li became something of a savior when he stopped his punch at the last moment. This gesture was not a sign of disdain or a thought of her weakness. On the contrary, Li felt a special strength and dignity in her. After the match was over, as she got back to her feet, Li wondered if she had used her full strength against him, as he noticed that she hadn't used her full swordsmanship or dark element power. She confirmed his observation, noting that it was just friendly sparring, and that she purposely didn't use all her trump cards because she didn't think it was necessary. She also noted that Li didn't fight with his full strength either, referring to a video of his exam that she was able to see. After that, she offered to meet him again to get to know him better. As they exchanged glances, there seemed to be a mutual sympathy between them that heralded the beginning of a new acquaintance, or perhaps something more. After Miss picked him up, she brought him to his new home, which seemed to be a place with its own secrets and promises. In the first-year dormitory spread over a small mountain, ordinary students live at the foot, while at the very top there is a dormitory for students from the priority set, as if they guarded the entrance to heaven. At the entrance to the dormitory, Mist stopped, looking back at Li, and asked if he was really looking for the ice lotus, surrounded by legend and mystery. In the narrow corridor, she told him that there was a group that had seen the ice lotus in the Stormwind Mountains. But due to the danger from high-level monsters, no one dared to collect it. Important disclaimer: this information is 6 years old. Later, Li went to his room, where he began to study the Stormwind Mountains in detail with the help of a computer. preparing for the challenges ahead. Analyzing the information, he realized that with his current strength, he would only be able to escape if he encountered a high-level monster. But the system promised him resurrection in case of death after passing the exam. Despite his doubts, Li was certain that the mountains would contain what was needed to cure his sister, and it was a risk he was willing to take. He acquired the protective enchantments VDJ Radiant Strike and Shield of Holy Light VDJ necessary to protect him as a level 1 Paladin, which he was fortunately able to obtain for free. Armed with all the necessary equipment, Li finally set out for the Stormwind Mountains, ready for all the dangers that lay ahead. Walking among the rocky peaks, he suddenly heard a distant explosion, a sign that his adventure was just beginning. Intrigued by the strange sounds, Li activated his new Forest Set skill, which allowed him to silently approach the source of the noise, though it cost him a lot of points. At that time, the white-haired girl, immersed in the world of social media, was lying in her room and going through correspondence with Li, hoping to find something more than a simple conversation in them. In the text, she suggested that Li go to the practice squad together tomorrow. But when she was rejected, she hugged her pillow in frustration, feeling the pain of rejection. Upset, she decided to call her friend via video link. A friend immediately noticed her depressed state and asked what was wrong, sensing a change in her mood. Unable to resist, the girl admitted that she had met a special guy and planned to go to the Stormwind Mountains to meet him, despite the possible risks. In the mountains, a girl named Mechanic Zhu Zhao was setting up her explosive devices, which she placed right in the path of the monsters. Monsters attacking weapons activated mines and detonated, creating chaos and destruction in their ranks. Her fighting partner was Wen Tian, VDJ who used his Ice Spirit summoning ability to effectively destroy monsters in his path. Together in a car, they broke through the crowds of monsters, getting closer to their goal with each kilometer. Also with them was the stranger's tribute marksman, equipped with a huge machine gun, which she masterfully engaged the enemies, accurately shooting them in the head, providing the team with the necessary fire cover. Shooter Chuju, Dan amazed everyone with her ability. Her shooting was so intense that the bullets flew at the monsters like lava from a volcano. Sitting in the back of the car, she destroyed the enemies one by one without any chance for them to survive. One of the most skilled fighters was the swordswoman Sukinglian, whose skill with the sword inspired admiration and fear in the hearts of their enemies. However, suddenly a loud explosion rang out next to her, sending a wave that nearly swept her away, leaving her dazed and confused. The truck they were riding in was overturned by the powerful blast wave, throwing everyone on board into a chaotic dance of metal and glass. Everyone found themselves on the floor of the overturned truck, not understanding what had happened, mixed feelings of panic and uncertainty engulfing the group. Suddenly, the girl who had fallen to the floor in horror asked her friend to go back, looking back at what was left behind. Demons appeared behind them, one of the 5 particularly cruel ones known for their lust for living creatures. Using all their available resources and skills, the group was only able to kill 4 demons, which seemed like a tiny victory to them against the total number of enemies. It seemed to them that they had already met their end, when suddenly, from the mist between the trees, Li appeared on a huge white wolf, like a rider who had come to the rescue, radiating charisma and strength, ready to come to the aid of his friends in a desperate battle. Li bursts onto the scene in no time, ready to save his comrades. He activates his Holy Storm skill, which immediately challenges monsters. A huge golden cross appears in the sky, creating an incredible sight that looms over the monsters with heavenly power. The cross, like a hurricane, rolls through the ranks of monsters, crushing them one by one, leaving no chance of survival. Li shows himself on a new, much tougher level, where a small cross shining on his forehead controls a huge cross that destroys enemies. This ability causes a powerful hurricane that blows away everything in its path, from monsters to trees. Li sits on his huge white wolf, which he also summoned. The wolf looks majestic, with blue eyes glowing the color of cold. The wolf has the ability to breathe ice, which, combined with the fire of the Golden Cross, has amazing power, capable of felling even trees. As Li and his wolf destroy all the monsters in their path, the 4 students who have just experienced failure look up to him, believing him to be their savior. Upon approaching each of them, Li uses the slow regeneration skill, helping them recover from their injuries and regain their strength. A feeling of gratitude and wonder fills the hearts of the students, who now see in Li not just a strong warrior, but a true hero, ready to risk himself for the sake of others. One of the girls, a member of the Blue Phoenix, a top 3 university team, thanked Li profusely, noting that she didn't expect him to know about them. Li, familiar with the team's reputation, only nodded in response. After that, One of the girls picked up her seriously injured comrade and told Li that the monsters in this area were very dangerous, and they should return to base to assess the situation. Li thought about how he had spent a month searching for the ice lotus in the outer regions without finding any trace. Knowing that the freshman competition would be held in 3 days, he decided that he would continue his search after that. Having agreed to the girl's proposal, they prepared to retreat. The same girl activated her skill Metal Spirit of Speed Phantom Rumble, summoning a giant mechanical spider. Under her, a circle with symbols formed on the ground, from which a spider appeared. A spider that emerged from a cloud of smoke became their means of escape. The girl, showing off a little, shouted that there was little time and everyone should immediately get on the spider and run away from this place. Li asked her if demons were common in the Stormwind Mountains. She replied that their team had been exploring these mountains for over 2 months now. But this was the first time they encountered demons, which could mean that the demons came from deep within the mountains or from a nearby base. She added that they should immediately return to the base and inform the military. Li questioned why there were no magical towers controlling the area in the war zone. She explained that there are many monsters in the mountains, and to prevent them from attacking peaceful towns, there is a supply and trade base built by the military at the entrance to the area. She pointed out that although there is a magic tower here, the level of the local monsters is too low to detect it. Li disagreed with this statement, because level 20 silver-ranked demons could not be considered weak, and this called into question the effectiveness of the tower. The magic tower, she said, mainly tracks monsters of epic and legendary levels in the depths of the mountains. She explained that if a monster's level is below the minimum threshold, the magic towers cannot detect it. She wondered why, if there was a spatial rift here, only low-level monsters were sent to it. If the rift lets 30th level demons through, nothing will prevent demons of level 50 or even higher from passing through it. This could not only endanger their lives, but also expose the location of the crack. So it is important to think now about how to pass all the information to the military after they return. Suddenly, the sound of monsters chanting "food, food, food" came from behind the trees. Li, focusing on the aura blowing in the distance, realized that the demons had discovered someone else who was there. He turned to the team girl and told them to go first, promising to catch up with them later to ensure their safety and face the next threat himself. Despite the fear of others, Li felt nothing but determination. He was in his element, fearless in the face of danger. He mounted his white wolf and charged forward. Picking up speed on the wolf, Li watched the aura intently. She seemed very familiar to him, which only increased his urgent urge to act. Li tried to understand why she was here, and suddenly realized that it was the white-haired girl who corresponded with him before. She was alone against almost 20 silver-rank demons. The chances of holding on in such an unequal fight were minimal. Meanwhile, another team of students idly sat on the ground debating whether they should help. But one of them suggested they stay away, believing they themselves were trapped. You could easily read fear and timidity on their faces, which made them stand out as cowards. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl fought heroically against the monsters, giving her all. She used all her skills trying to inflict maximum damage on the demons. Over time, the demons realized that her powers had a time limit and began to surround her, avoiding direct contact so that her powers would drain. Demons acted in groups of 10 monsters. Even after killing 8, she had to deal with constantly increasing ranks of enemies. She had almost no chance of escaping to the base unless she could break through their lines before her strength was completely depleted. Li, seeing the situation, prepared to intervene to save her at the last minute. Suddenly, like a roll of thunder, everything around was lit up with golden lightning that came out of nowhere, illuminating the carnage around. She felt an aura approaching VDJ, powerful and brave. It was help that seemed to her like a shoulder, ready to support in the most difficult moment. Li appeared on his white wolf, his energy and help cut through the air. He raced towards her at great speed, shouting at her to move aside, thus trying to lead her away from the greatest danger. A huge monster appeared behind her, growling at the entire forest, its voice echoing in every tree. This monster's berserker mode was activated. It became bigger and more aggressive. Its body took on impressive dimensions. The demon's transition into berserker mode meant that his power increased exponentially, making him an extremely dangerous opponent. She yelled at Li to run away, as she knew that in ghost mode the demon became even stronger, and normal attacks were useless against him. Realizing the danger, she believed that if she self-destructed, there was a good chance she could kill the demon via 90% chance of Jerry, and thereby protect Li. These thoughts were very noble of her, but Li pushed aside her fear, mounted her white wolf, and prepared to challenge the monster. The monster turned out to be so powerful that his punches destroyed everything around, creating cracks even in the ground. Li, using his next move, summoned Light Punishment, a powerful skill that caused lightning to descend from the sky, destroying everything in its path. These bolts of lightning struck the ground mercilessly, dealing massive damage to everything beneath them, turning the demons to ashes. As he watched the results of his magical attack, Li couldn't help but admit that it was understandable why many people sought out the magic class VDJ. Killing monsters from a distance was really fun. Meanwhile, the other monsters were also rushing towards him, trying to save the day. There were countless monsters VDJ, about 180 demons VDJ surrounding them from all sides. Li and the girl stood together, assessing the situation. They looked great together, and he considered using mass attacks, but the monsters were scattered all over the area, creating a noise that prevented them from focusing on one spot. Li placed 2 fingers to the girl's temple, starting a slow regeneration process that caused a yellow aura to leave her head. These were blessings of dawn, blessings of weapons, and God's gift, all possible Paladin power-ups that Li gave her to enhance her abilities. She felt all these improvements in her body. The 2 of them were now sitting on the white wolf, and her characteristics had greatly improved, making her stronger. At the crucial moment, Li left her on the wolf, jumped off it himself, picked up the great hammer, and rushed towards the demons, ready for another clash to end this invasion once and for all. Swinging his hammer, Li charges at the demons, knocking out 3 opponents with a single blow, dealing devastating damage to them. The girl watches this action from the side, admiring the power of his punches, which seemed to be 25% stronger, nearly doubling her own strength. She knew that no 16th or even 25th level paladin was capable of such feats, which made Li an exceptional warrior on the battlefield. Suddenly, a giant demon appeared in front of her, which met with the sharp teeth of the wolf, which threw him back. With no time to think about her thoughts, the girl follows Li's request and charges at the monster with the sword, using her skill and speed. Together, like water and fire, they easily destroy a crowd of demons, becoming a deadly team. At a critical moment when Li was struggling, a demon appeared behind him. The demon swings his sword at Li, but he misses and the sword flies out of his hands. The girl, using her skill Shadow Whip, concentrates the demonic energy in her hand and knocks the sword out of the demon's hands, inflicting heavy damage on it. Supplementing her attack adds the effects of Potion of Darkness. Without much time to think, Li activates an orb of sacred light that protects allies and makes them immune to physical damage, giving them an important tactical advantage on the battlefield. Li activates his powerful Holy Cross skill, creating a huge cross of holy light behind him. This cross emits a tremendous amount of energy, and all enemies within a certain range are affected by the holy fire that spreads around them. The girl, standing under a protective dome, watches this impressive scene with rapt attention, feeling the power and majesty of Li. Despite being outnumbered by the monsters, Li confidently continues his fight, showing no signs of fatigue or fear. Under the influence of the sacred light, all darkness seems doomed as its light devours the darkness, restoring order and light. This light becomes the focus of a holy storm that unfolds in a certain area, dealing significant damage to all enemies in a certain radius. Huge golden crosses begin to descend from the heavens, hitting the ground with a thunderous roar, each strike eliminating hordes of monsters. The blows of these crosses cause enormous damage, causing large blast waves that blow everything around to pieces. The next phase is a powerful hurricane created from the explosive energy, which drags every monster into its maelstrom. The hurricane scatters them in different directions, dispersing the dangerous mass of enemies and reducing their threat, leaving the battlefield in a dazed but liberated state. A hurricane of incredible power sweeps through the earth, discharging even the earth itself, leaving scorched traces behind. It is so huge that it can be seen even from afar, impressing with its scale and power. The guys, who were afraid to help the girl and hid in the bushes, watch this hurricane from behind the branches and can't believe that someone is capable of creating such a thing. Suddenly, one of them asks their boss if they should reveal themselves and come over. The boss agrees and says that they should befriend the guy who was able to create such a miracle, seeing it as an important strategic move. After killing all the monsters, Li reaches level 17, gaining 15 stat points and 15 skill points. He is currently level 18 thanks to killing 180 demons and gaining 60,000 experience. It's just a pity that the amount of experience that can be gained is limited by level. Otherwise, he would have gained a lot more. Surprisingly, it turned out that the newbie's mana had increased significantly, giving him a lot of high-level skills. However, even this advantage had its difficulties. When his power reached its peak, he had to seek advice from his teachers. They must have answers to his questions. Phoenix approached Li, shocked at his ability to take on all the enemies single-handedly. His incredible power was so impressive that it was easy to feel it even without knowing the details. The girl Li recognized looked exhausted as she sat next to her magical creature. Her weariness and tiredness became more and more noticeable by the minute. She gained a lot of energy in the battle, but she used up all her strength. Now she needs rest to restore her abilities. One of the Phoenix team girls asked Li if he had any experience with powerful demons before. This question was not accidental. He replied that the strongest demon he had ever destroyed was a level 23 gold rank demon. Her question raised suspicions about the absence of a commander-in-chief in the Demon Legion. This information made them return to the base as quickly as possible without wasting a single moment. And so the team began their rapid retreat to the base, eager to escape danger. The boys who were hiding behind the bushes, and the girls, watching this, thought that it was time for them to go too. However, their exit was suddenly interrupted by a loud sound that startled one of their team members, who was faced with a terrifying picture in front of him. A red light enveloped everything in front of Team Phoenix and Li, and it started to feel like the ground was shaking under their feet. These were demons that appeared out of the blue, sowing fear among the warriors. Standing in their way was a giant monster of the 30th level of the legendary rank, which looked like a white dragon. His name was Fire-Breathing Dragon, and he looked really scary. Next to him, another gigantic monster with a sword called Demon Origin appeared, displaying its terrifying power. The concentration of alien aura exceeded all permissible limits. The analysis showed that it was a level 4 intrusion, and the epicenter was in the northeastern district of the Stormwind Mountains. All troops confirmed the 4th level invasion and stood on alert, preparing for the inevitable battle. The Knights of the Snow Dragon Corps were ordered to immediately finish their training and gather near the teleportation city to quickly go to help. The Snow Dragon Corps Priest Squad is ordered to be ready to assist and replenish mana to support the troops. The Snow Dragon Corps Logistics Unit is tasked with redistributing the magic cores and fragments, and the Magicians are tasked with quickly building a teleportation circle according to the specified coordinates. In front of the commander stood his entire army. All units arrived and waited for his order, ready for the worst. It was Soi Yu Zhou, the commander of the Snow Dragon Corps, a large and strong man whose armor exuded unwavering determination and readiness for battle. Standing in front of his army, Soi Yu Zhou swore to be a sword that would cut through any obstacles and a shield that would protect this land. He was ready for anything for his ideals. The commander pronounced his credo and ordered the troops to repeat it. Loud words rang out among the ranks. "I will be a sword that cuts through all territories. I will be a shield that protects this land." Readiness for battle filled the hearts of every warrior. Every demon in the Legion had been personally selected by him for the past 6 months. During this time, he lost no more than 10 of his soldiers, demonstrating incredible efficiency. However, before they returned to the Sacred Realm, hundreds of his soldiers were killed by humans, causing anger in the hearts of the survivors. His anger towards people was so great that he could not forgive them, but sought only revenge. The paws of the fire-breathing dragon firmly planted themselves on the ground. Their weight cracked the ground, announcing its power and strength. Both demons were ready to take people's souls and burn them in hellfire. Nothing could stop their thirst for destruction. Li stood steadfast in front of the dragon that had just landed. His expression was determined and bold as he prepared for a confrontation. Demon Spawn Oramus used his summoning skill to summon silver and gold rank demons. A huge army of powerful warriors gathered around him. The girl who watched this scene was shocked, surprised and frightened by the number and strength of the summoned demons, especially the gold rank knights that she had never expected to see. The commander of Team Blue Phoenix turned to Li, saying that her team would distract the demons, thus giving him a chance to escape danger. Her words were full of determination, and her gaze was unwavering. She believed in Zhou as the most powerful genius she had ever met. He was a member of the elite, which is why she and her team were convinced that his life was key to the fight against the demons. A circle appeared in the red sky, from which legs gradually began to appear. The atmosphere tensed up to the limit. Later, another huge and very beautiful circle appeared, filled with magic and power. One of the girls explained that it was the Snow Dragon Corps, a force made up of people who had reached level 30 and had gone through their second awakening. Their commander, level 51, had already undergone 3 awakenings. For them, it was hope and a chance for salvation. However, the demons were sure that their army would not be able to break through the magical barrier they had created. The news about the magic barrier was completely unexpected for everyone. The commander-in-chief of the Snow Dragon Corps and his assistant could not pass through the forbidden magic circle of demons, the wall of dark fire. As soon as the barrier was established, it became impossible to teleport, both from the inside and from the outside. The aide explained to him that they would need at least 2 hulls to force their way inside. Otherwise, they will just have to wait for the barrier to dissipate. They had to wait a whole 5 minutes, which seemed like an eternity. Believing that those who remained inside would survive was almost impossible. The commander-in-chief gave instructions to gather information about the people who remained inside the magical barrier. After the end of the battle, it is necessary to contact their families to inform them of the fate of loved ones and, if necessary, to arrange the transfer of the remains. A pop-up window appeared in front of Lee with a new task: to destroy the demon spawn of legendary rank. The reward for successful completion is an S+ rank talent and an elixir of luck. An important detail was that there was no penalty for failure. Lee was very pleased with the new task. It became a new challenge for him and an opportunity to prove his strength. The team of girls hoped that Lee would just run away, but he decided not to avoid the collision. A magical golden energy shone in his body, which signaled his readiness to fight to the end. The demon in front of Lee noticed a powerful holy aura in him, and recognizing his strength, offered to kill the young man with his own hands, as a show of respect and recognition of his strength. The dragon rose into the air, the demon on its back, preparing to let Lee die in the throes of the massive battle. It was interesting to see if Lee expected this development. However, his serious face, beautiful hairdo and confidence in his gaze indicated that he was ready for any challenge. The dragon spewed icy breath from its jaws, using cold blue energy instead of fire, creating a spectacular picture in the air. The girl who was watching the battle was very scared for Lee, afraid that he would not be able to withstand such a powerful attack, which was unparalleled among ordinary monsters and demons. Lee, in response to the demon's attack, swung his weapon and launched his attack in the direction of the dragon, showing his determination and skill in battle. Lee and the demon's attacks collided in the air with such force that a bright spark erupted. The energy of both opponents was so powerful that it created a halo of light all around. But Lee's attack proved stronger, cutting off the dragon's breath, and the demon fell from its proud mount with a great thud. The weight of the dragon reached 500 tons, and when he fell to the ground with a loud bang on his head, the ground crackled and the stones around his head flew into fragments. Lee couldn't stand still and immediately charged at the demon, taking advantage of his moment of weakness. The demon, swinging his demon arm and holding the weapon, tried to parry Lee's attack, but to no avail. Lee attacked so skillfully that he left behind only deep cuts in the ground. Even the demon was shocked by the audacity and skill of this young man. Suddenly, Lee came around him from behind and hit the demon hard with his hammer directly on the body, making a loud sound from the impact. Each swing of his hammer was so powerful that it left behind a glowing pillar of light, and when it struck the ground, the entire planet seemed to tremble. It was unclear how it was possible for a boy of only level 18 to have the power to resist such a powerful demon. After a few attacks, Lee told the demon that he was a real tough nut, crossing his fingers in the process. He noted that this was the first legendary monster he had encountered, causing respect and alarm in the eyes of his enemy. The demon, enraged by the boy's audacity, lunged at Lee with his sword, trying to deliver a decisive blow. Lee, reacting like lightning, jumped up and parried the demon's attack with extreme agility. He used a light attack in the form of a cross that cut from his weapon directly into the demon's pitiful body, illuminating the battle with a bright flash. The pure white blade had successfully imposed a stun effect, and Lee raised his hand up, ready to deliver a decisive blow to punish the world. The demon had only one option left to defend itself: to summon the fire demon's shield, the last line of defense. These two giant forces clashed again. The punishment of the world hit the demon directly from the mountain, who in response managed to raise a shield over his head. It was very difficult to hold this attack, but the demonic shield proved to be surprisingly powerful. One should not forget the power of this demon. Even the punishment of the world could not defeat him. It seemed that Lee would not be able to defeat such a powerful demon with normal means. He needed to use something special that the system had given him after the last exam. After a few attacks, the demon began to feel tired. The fight against Lee became more and more difficult, but his aura continued to glow around his sword, announcing an indomitable will. Finding a way out of the situation, the demon called out to his generals, thus devising a cunning plan that would change the course of the battle. The demon decided to rely on the support of his army, using their unique abilities for protection. He ordered his monster generals, who had sinister weapons capable of killing dozens of soldiers with a single blow, to intervene in the battle. These monsters, some with giant wings and others with hooves thundering on the ground, appeared from the demon's back, ready to attack with all their terrible power. Lee decided that this was the perfect time to use the reward he received after successfully passing the exam. He turned to the power of the Paladin, and a giant golden circle formed around him, the energy of which began to seethe. This circle has become an impenetrable obstacle for anyone. All the onlookers, including Team Phoenix and Team Snowdragon, looked at it in amazement and disbelief, amazed at its power. Li folded his arms and summoned a paladin from the sky. A giant golden hand began to appear from the portal, which pulled out a magical woman. Even the demon watched this scene in horror, witnessing something incredibly powerful and threatening. In his mouth was an eye that allowed him to observe his surroundings, and he opened it as wide as it had ever been before. The golden hand, descending to the ground, grabbed a piece of the hand to connect with the ground, creating a powerful connection. The light that emanated from that hand was so bright that it blinded everyone around. The girls on the team were surprised and shocked that Li could use such a skill. The Snowdragon captain, watching the unfolding of events, compared the power of the golden hand to ordinary magic cannons, acknowledging its immense power. His assistant informed him that the students from Suhan University were at the epicenter of these events, and the person who used the paladin skill was Zhou Li. The captain closed his eyes in frustration, thinking that the difference in strength between the demon and the boy was very large, and that the demon was much stronger. He assumed that it would take much longer for Li to defeat the demon spawn. The demon slammed his hands on the ground in anger, causing a collapse that formed a huge funnel. Orimas, possessed by a demon, ordered the Legion of Fire Demons to attack, and the Legion of Fiery Curse to cast a spell. All the demons gained extra strength. Their bodies seemed to be burning with rage, filled with a killing lust. Under the Curse Warden's guidance, the demons became even more aggressive, and their leader began chanting incantations while raising his staff aloft. Hundreds of spell-created hands began to appear around Li, trying to grab him. However, Li remained remarkably calm even in such a tense situation. He placed his hammer on the ground and began to concentrate as much as possible, preparing for the next confrontation. Despite the tense situation, the demon tried to calm his wizard down, assuring him that Li, who was a level 18 paladin, was already almost out of mana after several battles. They decided that after Li's mana was exhausted, they could easily defeat him by using their superiority in numbers. Indeed, God's tribute had used up all of his mana, and his recovery speed was too slow. Therefore, Li found himself in a critical situation without his main force. The only way out was to use Divine Summon, a paladin's one-time secret skill. This skill does not require mana and does not depend on passive skills. Once activated, it allows the user to use the power of the God of Light, increasing the values VDJ of 4 attributes depending on the user's physical data, temporarily increasing all Divine Light skills by 5 levels, and greatly increasing the regeneration rate of health and mana. However, the effect has a limited duration, after which a state of weakness occurs. Suddenly, a golden beam from the sky hit the ground at the speed of light, forming a portal in the sky. The impact was so powerful that it pierced through the ground. The four-eyed demon watched this, and all of his eyes nearly popped out in shock. None of the demons could understand what was happening. Even their leader watched in amazement as a beautiful golden beam and 6 wings began to appear in the portal. The woman came down through the portal and gently wrapped her arms around Li's neck. She held him like a mother to her newborn son, showing incredible tenderness and support. From the powerful energy of the golden fire, some feathers from her wings caught fire and fell to the ground. Monsters tried to catch them, competing for every piece of this magical fire. However, when the monsters tried to catch the burning feathers, their hands caught fire and the fire quickly engulfed their bodies, turning them into ashes. The Snowdragon captain, observing this, realized that it was a divine summoning technique. His assistant, not understanding this, asked to explain what exactly was happening. He explained that it was a higher-level skill specific to the divine class that allowed them to release the heavenly power they believed in. He had once seen a level 58 priest use a similar technique to instantly heal an entire legion that was able to withstand the attack of 3 demonic legions and wait for reinforcements. He added that the heavenly forces were more terrifying than the ocean. They could kill large masses of mana, and they were all shocked that an 18th level holy knight used such a powerful technique. The demon realized that only those with divine powers could resist the divine summoning technique, and that if Li completed the summoning, their legion would be destroyed. He ordered a portal to be prepared to return to the Shadow Village, figuring that they would only be able to hold out for 1 minute before the head demon could return home. He urged his team to show commitment and endurance, asking if they would be able to withstand this critical situation.
"Fire demons, heed my command! You must make a sacrifice in the name of the demonic son of Arimas," he told all his subordinates.
The demons were ready to sacrifice everything in the name of the son of Arimas and to stop part of his great shield. Realizing the danger, the demon began to use all of his aura, which was a critical moment for him, as his own survival depended on this decision. Everything had to be decided in 1 minute. Whether the demon would manage to escape or he would be defeated. The first yellow beam flew past the demon's energy, illuminating his shadow for just a moment. The winged woman contemplated the demons, feeling pity for these unfortunate creatures. She transferred her heavenly power to Holy Knight Li to help him fight. She pointed her hand towards the demons and said, "Thus God commanded," transferring all the energy to the boy. His eyes began to glow with golden light, absorbing the power that this woman gave him. All the power given by the woman was concentrated in Li's body. God gave him the right to use this power in the name of good. The energy that had been given to him began to gather at the tip of his finger. He aimed it at the monsters, and the beam hit the ground at a speed well above the speed of light, creating a huge explosion that no one could survive. All the demons experienced the apocalypse firsthand as they desperately tried to survive amid the destruction and fire. Level 32 and 43 legendary demons wanted to resist, but faced such a strong energy that they were overwhelmed almost immediately. They tried to send their own beam in response to the golden pillar where Li and the celestial woman were. The demon had 6 arms, and it created a purple layer in front of it that was a fire demon's fiery roar, a last-minute attempt to turn the tide of the battle. Using the fire demon's sunlight, he focused all his energy to counter the boy and his incredible strength, hoping to surpass him. This skill is one of the most powerful innate abilities of a fire demon, creating flames with temperatures reaching 50 million degrees. Without the sacrifice of his loyal people, he would not have been able to create such a powerful flame. The demon launched a circle of purple flame towards the boy, counting on his imminent death. Shar was steadily approaching his goal. It seemed that nothing could stop him. The resulting explosion was the size of a separate planet, and the air was incredibly hot. It seemed impossible that anyone could survive inside this flame. The demon, having spent all his strength, watched the event and already thought that he had succeeded in achieving his goal. However, as the purple energy began to dissipate, an image of a boy appeared who was very angry. The demon then realized that they were on different levels of power and that he was no match for Li. A minute passed and the return portal was ready. He just had to get to it. However, behind him was Li, who was very annoyed by the demon's attack and was willing to do anything to stop the demon. The swing of Li's hand was accompanied by a loud cry, "You must die!" And immediately after the words, a powerful force flew towards the demon. From the sky itself, the force of the impact descended to the ground, leaving behind a path of destruction that continued to advance straight towards the demon. The demon crawled on his knees trying to reach the portal, but the beam cut him in half, and his miserable body never made it to the goal. The attack was so powerful that the cut was so precise that the demon's body slowly split into 2 parts with black blood pouring out. The other demons were at a loss as their leader was already dead, the portal damaged, and they didn't know how to get back home. Li descended to Earth as a true hero who saved the entire planet from a threat. His body was very tired after such a hard fight. In the air, he lost consciousness and like a falling ball quickly descended to the ground, where the team of girls and everyone present tried to catch him. The girls asked the priest to check on Li urgently, while they ordered the first and second teams to search the area for survivors and attack the remaining demons. The scene cuts to a hospital ward where the boy's arm begins to move, indicating that he is still fighting for his life after all the ordeal. Li felt like it was hard for him to breathe, as if something was squeezing his chest. He had not yet regained consciousness and dreamed that someone was holding him tightly. Suddenly he jumped up, regaining consciousness, and was frightened, thinking that it had all been a terrible dream. He sat down on the hospital bed. A girl was sitting next to him, waiting for him to wake up. She watched him sleep for 2 days, during which he thought she was strangling him. She broke his reverie, pulled his clothes, gave him a little tug and said, By the way, thank you for saving me." She kissed his cheek, which was very sweet and gentle. A window with daily tasks appeared in front of Li. Due to the events of the last few days, he missed training. He had to do 200 push-ups, 200 squats, and 200 pull-ups. In addition, he slept for 2 days and did not collect rewards for daily tasks. After opening the rewards, he found some pleasant surprises. An S+ rank talent called Death Confrontation, which allows him to be resistant to death. His body becomes more resistant to death and all wounds heal faster. This rank of S+ and the name Death Confrontation hinted at something special that could give him an even greater advantage in the future. Li took out a dagger and inserted it into his body, testing his new ability. He wanted to see how quickly his body could heal the wound by testing the limits of his new talent in practice. After the dagger experiment, Li woke up in bed feeling like new. His quick recovery confirmed that his new talent did indeed give him significant survival advantages. The idea came to Li's head to injure his limb more deeply, so that he could see for himself the effectiveness of his new talent. As a reward, he was also given increased luck. He wondered if, walking past a legendary class weapon, he might chance upon a tertiary awakening, or find a treasure on sale. He received so many opportunities that it was difficult to list them all, and decided that it would be better to save some of them for the future. However, while flipping through his rewards, he came across something very interesting. His eye caught the words divine skill. It was a skill he had used in his battle with the demon. Li kept reading, wanting to know more. Shining Holy Fire is a world-type skill that increases light and fire damage by 40%. This skill could be activated at the same time as Order the World. The combination of Holy Fire Shining and World Punishment could turn him into a mage of fire and light. Li wondered if that was really the case. Suddenly, his attention was distracted by a voice behind the door. Turning his head to the left, he braced himself to hear who it might be. Li stepped out into the corridor where he was met by Wan Lian, the vice-captain of the Snow Dragon Legion. He thanked Li for destroying the Demon Sun's gate, allowing them to capture many demons. Wan Lian took out a strange item from his pocket, which opened information windows in front of them. He said that the captain wanted to thank Li in person, but due to urgent business, he sent him. Thanks to Li destroying half of the Shadow Valley with his strike, the Legion learned many demonic secrets that the captain had already reported to his superiors. The information windows also had plenty of C-rank treasures for Li to pick up. However, Li was interested in a different matter, and asked if the Snow Dragon Legion had any Frost Lotus in their warehouses. Wan Lian opened a window with information about a C-rank Frost Lotus, the reception of which allows one to internally awaken the power of the frost elements with a power of 100 million points. It was exactly what Li needed. The item cost Li 3 years' wages, but the captain was willing to pay for it. After that, Wan Lian began to close all the windows that had opened. He also informed that the Frost Lotus is in the warehouse of the main headquarters, so it will have to wait a few days. If Li gets bored, he offered to help hunt monsters in the valley. Wan Lian planned for Li to join the hunt with his Legion peers. If he becomes part of the higher squad, then this friendship will bring many benefits to the Legion. It was a great plan. He was just about to leave the room, but Li interrupted him, saying that he had to go to the rookie competition tomorrow. So he had to go back to the dorm and asked Mage to take him there. He completely forgot that he was still studying and agreed to help him without any problems, and Frost Lotus said that they would send him directly to the dormitory in 2 days. He was infinitely grateful to the demonic sun. If it wasn't for him, it would not have been possible to gain access to the warehouses of the Snow Dragon Legion. It's almost 12 o'clock on the clock. It's time to finish the daily tasks. Meanwhile, in the dormitory, the commander of the Phoenix team, a beautiful girl with long legs, wrapped in a towel, got out of the hot shower, and behind the door of the shower, steam from the hot water in which she washed her long hair and beautiful body 5 minutes ago was coming out on the floor. One of the members of her team went up to her, and another stood on the steps behind her. They asked to ask Li to join their Blue Phoenix team, but she didn't think he would agree. He was so strong that it was better for him to fight alone. But the girls objected, saying that we wouldn't try, we wouldn't know, and reminded her how she was looking at him. A few minutes later, the girl was already standing at the boy's door and knocking on his door. He left the room, wiping his face with the t-shirt he was wearing, and under the t-shirt you could see all the 8 abs he had. She offered him to become part of their team. He thought she was joking, but she said otherwise, everyone on her team would be very upset. And she pointed out one more very important thing. Thanks to him, they all remained alive. And she grabbed him very hard, giggling, and kissed him on the cheek, calling it a special thank you. He was very surprised by this, even confused for a moment. She was also very upset, and didn't wait for his answer. She just closed the door and said goodbye to him with a big smile. He remembered this personal reward of hers, a special thank you in the form of kisses, and admitted that girls were very generous now. Meanwhile, at the meeting, a conference man was talking to the team, telling them that according to their data, the demons had infiltrated them 6 months ago. All this time they were hiding in Storm Valley. They also learned that the demons had learned how to travel between worlds using medium-sized interspatial rifts. One participant asked, "Are you sure you understand what this means?" He explained that previously beings from another world could only pass through large rifts, and since such rifts could not exist for long, the outsiders did not pose much of a threat. But now they have learned to pass through the middle rifts, of which there are many throughout the planet, and the whole world is under threat of destruction. Because of this, they brought information that has been verified many times, and fortunately, Only monsters below level 30 can pass through the middle rifts. A man with horns and very impudent offered to take measures as soon as possible. Senator Yan was ordered to notify all of the country's great legions and set up guards at every medium rift. Senator John will hold an international council and inform other countries to watch their reactions. One man asked Captain Shu if he meant to say that they had collected this data because of the boy's intervention. He confirmed that the name of this hero is Zhuo Yu, namely Liu Jinn. He has recently awakened as a holy knight and now ranks first in his country. Having recently entered the University of Saints, he used the divine summoning technique to kill the demonic sun and destroy their return gate, thereby greatly aiding their operation. The participants of the conference noted that the Holy Knight in the first place is a great rarity. One of the participants in the conference asked Li of the Saints if this was by chance the Zhuo family with a cold pedigree. The headmaster of the university was ordered to keep an eye on him if he returned to school, and if any potential was seen in him, to notify everyone immediately.